Hi kids, do you remember who we've been talking about for the last few weeks? An old man in the Old Testament? It's Moses. That's right. At the very beginning, we talked about when he was a tiny baby and his mom put him in the basket. And then suddenly he was a very old man with a long white beard. In our next story, when he was fighting with the Pharaoh, or not really fighting with the Pharaoh, but disagreeing with the Pharaoh and trying to save the Hebrew people from being slaves. And he marched them out of Egypt, and they tried to get across the Red Sea, and it opened up wide. And then last week he went up on a mountain and he got 10 what from God? The 10 Commandments, that's right, and they put it in the Ark of the Covenant. Well, now this week's story, they're still walking. They've been walking for 40 years. That's a really long time. That's longer than probably your parents have been alive. But we're going to see today when the Hebrew people and Moses finally spot the promised land. They see it in the distance, and how do you think they're feeling? They're probably excited and scared and worried. They don't know exactly what's going to happen. So let's see today how they handle it when they finally get to the land that God has promised them. A story from the book of Numbers, chapters 13 through 14, Spying on the Promised Land. Finally, the people of God were ready to enter the Promised Land. Before they went into the land, Moses identified 12 people and called on them to scout out the area. Moses said, "Go up into the hill country and see what the area is like. See whether the people who live there are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, whether the towns have walls or are unwalled, whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be bold and bring back some of the fruit of the land too." The 12 people began on their journey into the promised land. After 40 days, the 12 spies returned to Moses. They brought grapes on a pole carried by 2 men, and pomegranates and figs as big as their fists. They told Moses about the sweet and fertile land. They saw lush fields to graze sheep and goats, trees bursting with fruit, and buzzing bees gathering nectar. The grapes were plentiful, and the pomegranates and figs were the largest they had ever seen. "This land is good, but we don't want to go," 10 of the spies muttered. "We saw the people who live there. They are so big and strong, like giants. We felt like grasshoppers. They live in cities with walls to protect them. If we try to enter the land, they will surely squash us." Well, Joshua and Caleb disagreed with the others. "The land we went through was good land. God will be with us and give us this land flowing with milk and honey." They urged the people not to rebel against God's plan. They said, "The Lord is with us. Do not fear." Well, how about that? They got to the promised land, and was it good? Oh, with all the grapes and the pomegranates and the figs. It was wonderful. But you know what? We stopped before we found out if they got into the city. So you'll have to come back next week and find out the rest of the story. What do they do with the big people that they saw? How do they get past the big walls? I don't know, but Joshua and Caleb were very brave and told them they needed to keep going and believe because God told them to do that. So let's bow our heads and say a prayer for this week. Gracious God, may we seek to see you in all things, trusting in your faithfulness. Amen. See you next week.